So this is what we're going to make. It's beautiful, isn't it? The cool thing about this is that it's not just text. It's text being drawn from a database. So we're going to set up a database. It's going to be called MySQL It's going to have 2 tables, just random things, generic, mood, weather. And it's going to have some seed data in them. Happy, sad, joyful. Sunny, snowy, windy. And we're going to draw from this database and put it on a web page using Vue and Express. And this is a MySQL database. And you would not believe how much it takes to get these to show up, and we'll get into it. The first thing we need is something called Node.js. So go to nodejs.org/en/download and Windows installer and follow this through. Another thing we're going to need for the database connection is, well, for this one we're using XAMPP, and it's a pretty common one. There doesn't seem to be an official download page for that, so you can use this Softronic one, and you would click on that. Your download is started, and there it comes. And you got to ignore all these other ones that try to freak you out and get you to install other ones. So I've already got these downloaded. I can close them out. This is XAMPP. When you first open it up, it looks like this, and you've got to start Apache and MySQL. And once they're started, you can click on the admin button for MySQL. And this is the default PHPMyAdmin page. These are all the default databases that come. I'm just going to leave them there, but I'll click on New. Create database. I'll call it MySQL DB. And I don't know which one, so I just leave it as the default there. Maybe one day I'll understand what those mean. Click Create, but it seems to work this way. So the first thing it brings you to after you create a new database is create new table. And you can do it manually. It's just easier to use it this way. It's just all set up there. You just have to copy and paste it in. So I'm just using some generic things. So I have one table called mood. I'm going to make another table called weather and hit go. And what it has is it just has 2 things in the table, a primary key and a name of a mood, so like happy, sad, or whatever. And then I'll create another one for the weather. I wanted to create 2 tables because honestly, it took me a really, really, really long time to get this figured out, how to get a database working. I tried learning Laravel, and I just couldn't. Honestly, I'll just admit, I just couldn't get it working. So then I went to MySQL. I got it working with Sequelize, and then I went to Express, which this one's about because I think Express is a very common one, and it seems to be pretty robust. So I got that. So I got it working, and then you click on Go to make the second table. So now we can see here under MySQL DB we have 2 tables, mood and weather. And there's no data, so we'll enter some data. So we'll go insert, and I'm going to want to insert 3 rows, so I'll make 3 there. So this one is mood, so I'll say happy, sad, joyful, and then just hit go. And it's 3 rows inserted. You don't want to hit go again. I've tried that because it just inserts it all again. So now if we click on mood, we'll see here 3 entries that we can access from our web page later on. That's what we're going to do. And then weather, I'll insert some seed data here just to get it started. And weather, let's say sunny, snowy, windy. I first started this when it was winter time, so I thought of those weathers. Sunny, snowy, windy. So we have some seed data in our database under 2 different tables. Yeah, and it took me forever to figure out how to get 2 tables on one web page. I think I have this theory that that's why there's a lot of, like government forms and stuff, they just have one table on their database. That's why they're so simple. So I really wanted to make, it draw from 2 different tables on the same page. So that's why I have 2 here. And then we go to our desktop. We're going to make a new folder. I'm going to call the whole project MySQL DB for database. MySQL DB. Then we'll open it up in VSC, desktop, SQL, select folder. And this project is going to include what is called both the front end and the back end. The back end is where all the data gets stored, and the front end is where it shows everything. So the front end is like your HTML files, and in this case, it's going to be view and all that stuff. So, but first of all, we'll create the back end, which deals with the data. So we're going to create a new folder called backend. And then to initialize our backend, cd desktop, cd mysql db, cd backend. So we're in our new backend folder, and we're going to initialize it using that node that we that needed to be installed at the beginning. And in order to do that, we go npm, which stands for Node Package Manager, init, initialize, and then -y, because that'll install all the defaults, so we don't have to go through a questionnaire. Okay, and now it's created this package.json. Whenever you install things, it puts a package.json file. And we'll see that here in the backend, package.json, and we'll see that change as we install more things. So now we can install Express and MySQL and a couple other things. npm node package manager I for install nodemon. Nodemon will update your page as you go. Express MySQL 2. I guess the newest version is MySQL 2. And cores, which is another thing that's needed for this. Not sure exactly what it does, but it connects things, so it's necessary. Okay, so now if we go back to Visual Studio Code, it's installed all those. They're called dependencies. It's installed cores, Express, MySQL 2, and Nodemon. And also here we need to add type module. I'm not sure why that needs to be added, but it won't work without it, so we do it. I do it. Okay. So we can close this up. Oh wait, I might have to close my thing. Okay. So now we'll create a new folder called config. And I'll create a new file in that folder called database.js for JavaScript. And I'll just copy and paste everything in here. And so we're giving it this name. It's a good idea just to leave it like that. From MySQL 2, that's what we just installed in the package.json. And we need to make sure that MySQL DB is set correctly for what we named it on our phpMyAdmin page. And so it's MySQL DB. So that's what we want to have right here. Basically, we're just creating all the connections right now. And we haven't set a username or password, so these are just the defaults. We're just creating this on our local machines. It really doesn't matter if anyone hacks into this. They're not going to want to. So, I mean, when you start developing things and deploying them, you might want to think about security. But right now, this really doesn't matter. So we'll just leave it as username and, no password. Username root, no password. So save that. And something that's used a lot, or I think is standard now in backend and front end programming is something called MVC, which stands for Model View Controller. So model pertains to the database, your tables. It is basically a duplication of your tables, or it works with your tables in the database we just set up. The controllers tell it what to do with it, and then the view is what shows up on your screen. So we'll go ahead and click on the backend folder, make a few folders here to set up the MVC models. Click on backend again because you don't want to put the next folder inside of models. Controllers, and not views yet, but oops, I did that wrong again. See, it's so easy to do. And then we also need something called routes. The view is going to be, we're going to use view, different spellings. We're going to use view, VUE for our front end, but we'll set that up later. So right now we have the models, controllers, and we're setting up the routes. So in models, we're going to have one file for each table that we made. So new file, mood model.js. I'll just copy and paste it in here. So we're importing, again, we're making all these connections. We're importing the database. We're naming it DB so we can refer to it later here. And we're importing it from this file that we just made, config database.js. And this is a MySQL query selecting everything from the mood table. And we're calling that, we're calling this get mood. So we'll refer to this in other files. So this is getting all the data from the table. So save that, and then we'll go to controllers, create a new file, call it mood.js, and I'll just paste it in here. And it's importing that get moods from the mood model file we just made. So both of these are from the file we just made. And then we're creating a new method, perhaps, or function called show moods. And it's taking get moods from the last file, and then we'll refer to show moods in the next file after that. And basically it's just returning the data as a JSON file. JSON is a certain type of data formatting, and this is all JavaScript here. Now I know this is all very confusing, especially for someone just starting. I don't really know how this all works. I didn't actually write all this code. I just got it working with this code. So, I'm just copying and pasting it. I'm going to save this here. And we also need a file called index.js. I'll just copy and paste it here. And this file, it has a line here, import router from routes.js. We haven't made this file yet, so if we actually ran it, we'd get an error, but we'll make that next. And it's basically just making all the connections that we need. So it's connecting Express, it's expressing cores, and it's using this router here. Again, I didn't write it, but I know it's necessary to make all these connections. And now we'll go and make that routes.js file. Copy and paste again. So now we're referring to that controller here. Later on, we can add more to this. This is all the routes. So this file is complete. We can save it. Now we can start up our server. Node-mon index.js. So basically we're running this file right here. It's going to include everything that we just made. And we're using that node-mon, which updates it, all the time. Now, sometimes you might get some red error messages here, and they're very helpful to finding out what's the problem. but right now it's working properly, so that's great. So we've set up our backend. Now we can go and set up our front end. We'll open up a new command prompt. C desktop, cd mysql pdb. And we don't have to create a front end folder, but this will create it for us. So we go view create front end. So we're creating that view front end. Vue is very common. It's like the leading one at the moment, the leading front end framework. Okay, so now it's giving us all these questions. We're going to add the view router. We can take this one off, enter. We're going to choose view 3. View 3 and view 2 are very different, so it requires different syntax. We'll use view 3. Always use history mode. And in dedicated config files, I'm not sure, and no preset. Okay, so we'll just let this run here. Now Vue is something that will take data before whenever you'd make a call to a database, it would always have to go, like the signal would have to travel like, I don't know, millions of miles to go and get the signal and come back every time you click a button. But what this does is it Vue will store the data on the front end right on the user's computer so that it's readily available. So it just goes way, way, way faster. And I think Facebook was the first ones to initialize this kind of thing. They created this front end framework called React. And this is basically pretty much just like React Vue is. So, and it's I think it's the leading one that most companies use. Facebook probably uses React, but yeah, and a lot of other places. Okay, so now that's all installed, Vue's installed, cd, and we have this new folder, cd front end. It created it for us now. And then we have to install some things here. One thing, npm I Axios. Axios is something that connects the front end to the back end. So we need to install that here, and we install it on the front end. And then what we can do is, similar to the last one, we did nodebon index.js. On this one, we go npm run serve. And now we should have a web page. So copy this address. Paste it in. There we go. So we're going to write our whole web page in here, and we don't want it to look like this. So we're going to take out all of the default stuff that they've installed. We can close up backend for now. Front end, here's all the new files that were just installed. We're going to go to front end source, components. Everything's in source. Everything we're going to work with usually is in source. Components, we're going to delete this hello world.view. And we're going to start to see some error messages come up. See, scary error messages. Because now it's trying to get to something, can't resolve it, can't find. Components hello world.view. But we just deleted it, so that's fine for now. We're also going to go delete some other things. Views, about view.view, and home view.view. Delete those. Okay, we're not going to delete this one because we need an app.view for every view web page that we have, but we're just going to change it here. We're going to get rid of everything except router view. So everything we make is going to go with router view. We can get rid of all the styles as well. Save that. Now we're getting even more messages because it's looking for about view.view. somewhere else, and we'll clean that up too. So now we'll go to, again, still cleaning up index.js. See, it's still looking for home and about here. We'll get rid of those. Just clear this right out for now. We'll add something later. And we also have to delete this import home view. Save that. There we go. Got rid of the messages and everything else. So it's all clean now. Okay, so now we're going to start to build it up again. So we'll go to front end, source, views, and create a new file called index.view. And if you have the component called view to snippets, this one here, if you have this one installed, then it makes it easy for making the template for a new view file. So you'll just go view, and I'm going to choose the second one here. And this is the basic structure for any view component. I'll save it here. So you have the template. There's three parts. So you have the template, which has all of the HTML, the script, which has all your JavaScript, and then the style, which has all your CSS or SCSS or whatever, whichever one you're going to use. And you see this word scoped. It means that whatever CSS you put in here is just for this one file. It won't affect the rest of your project. It could affect any sub components that you have. So I'll just take out all the stuff that we don't need for index.view. Export index, and we'll get rid of all this other stuff. And that's about all we need for right now. Now I'm going to make a new file in components called moods.view. And each one of these is not its own web page. You can put many components, as many as you want, onto one page. So it's just a component, like the word says. So again, we'll do the view, take the view CSS one. I'll get rid of all this stuff here. And just so we can know that it's connecting, I'll write hi from moods.view, save it. And we'll go back to index.view and connect it to this moods.view. The way you refer to a component is moods. So that's the file name, moods.view, and you just put moods and then this here, save it. We also have to import it down here in the script section, import so it knows where to get it from. Moods from /components /moods.view. And we also have to add it here, component moods. And one more thing we have to do before it'll show up on our web page is make another connection. We have to go to router index.js, this one here, and refer to it here. Constant routes equals, copy and paste it. Why are we getting an error? Oh, should be a capital I, index.view. Or not? Okay, I have to figure this out here. Wait, it likes it now. Okay. Let's see. There it is. Hi from moods.view. Okay, so we have the front end set up, we have the back end set up. Now we can just go and get the data, which is what it's all about. So instead of hi from moods.view, well, what I'll do is I'll just copy and paste this all and I'll describe it. Okay, let's put a VR in there. Look at that, we're getting happy, sad, joyful. It's working. It makes me want to cry. And also, I just wanted to say another good place for doing troubleshooting is here. If you press F12, it'll bring up this inspector here. And if you click on the console tab, if there's any errors, they'll show up here and they can be very helpful. So what this did was we added a method. It kind of works up from the bottom. So we added a method called getMoods. It went to our route that we made to, wait, not that one, to routes.js. So it went to /moods, got the data with Axios, and then as soon as the page is created, it runs this method and returns this data. I'm not sure why it's so complicated, but this is necessary to get it working. And then in our HTML, we can draw from it. So v4, this is all Vue language right here. So v4 it's a loop for every mood in moods, in our array of moods. So in our case, there's 3 of them for each one. And this is the part that gets displayed. So mood name, and then we're going to have a line break there. So it's working. So we've made it through. Now we just need to do the same thing all over again for the other table. I'm just going to close out everything. First thing we do is go back to models, create a new file called weather model.js. It's going to be very similar to the mood model. Just going to say weather instead of mood. Save it. Make a controller. New file. Weather. Oops. Weather.js. Copy this one over. Again, it's going to be just like the mood model, except it's going to say weather model, show weather, get weather, convert it to JSON, send it over. Now, go to routes.js, copy and paste this one, import show weather, where's weather.js. It's still showing up kind of in shaded because we haven't referred to it yet, so we have to add this one, router.get weather. Weather, there it goes. Save that. See if there's any errors. Yep, it's still all green, it likes it. And we'll go back to the front end. So we've finished up the back end for a new table. So we go back to the front end. We go to components, add a new component called weather.view. View. Second one. Can delete everything again. And just to make sure that it's connecting, we'll go hi from weather.view. Save. But it's not quite ready to connect yet, so we'll go to index.view and add it here. Weather not ready yet because it isn't imported. So import weather from @/components weather. Oh, I'm trying to go too fast. View. And we also have to add it here. Weather. Now, there it is. Hi from weather.view. Okay, so we have 2 components on one page. Now we just have to get the 2 components, both the components getting data, just like the moods component. We'll put a space there. Okay, so to get the weather data, go back to weather.view, and I'll just copy and paste it again. Okay, so again, we have this complicated system setup where it gets the data. So we've got this method get weather, and then when the web page is created, we run this method, and then we return the data in an array. And now we have the weather list, and we can refer to it up here for weather in weather list. So for each weather in this array, we write weather.weather name, and we have a space in between each one. So let's save it. There we go. All right. So that's it. That's the end. We have 2 components, moods and weather. They're both drawing data from our backend. Models, mood model, weather model, which is drawing from our database, which we set up here. And it's all very exciting. Like I said, I tried to do this for a very long time. I tried Laravel. I could never get a video to work, I think, and it was because I never had the versions of Laravel and all the other things that were added correctly. So if you use like an old video, at least with Laravel, you have to make sure you have all the same versions that the person's using. I think that Express is a lot more robust that way. So this might be hopefully a more long-lasting video for anybody doing this in the future. But this is working. And then, the next thing is to make it pretty and useful. But the fundamentals are there. We have data in the database, and it's being displayed on a web page. Thanks a lot for watching.